It is an enormous topic nationwide right now. In fact, even the U.S. Supreme Court is talking about it. Oral arguments this week in the case of student loan debt relief as the justices weigh the future of President Biden's plan to forgive some student debt. Joining me now is Ted Jenking, our friend, the CEO of Oxygen Financial. Ted, how is the debt forgiveness program going to work for families if the Supreme Court rules in favor of moving it forward?
Yeah, well, good to see you, Jeff. And if they do rule in favor of President Biden here, this would cancel roughly $10,000 of student debt for millions of Americans. In fact, the plan would affect some 43 million Americans for some debt relief, and it would completely get rid of all the debt for 20 million Americans. But I think it'll come with a price tag of $400 or $500 billion. Families that make less than $250,000, individuals that make less than $125,000 will qualify. And if you were a Pell Grant recipient, someone who had demonstrated more of a need for financial help, it could be doubled to $20,000. So those would be the general outcomes if they favor President Biden here.
Do you think this really helps a lot of families across the country? What's your take on it?
I mean, of course, any time that you can wipe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of debt off your balance sheet, it will help. But I want to remind people that the student loan pause for repayment of debt went into effect on March 13, 2020. That means that millions of Americans have not been making a single debt payment for 3 years. Yet at the same time, Jeff, in the fourth quarter of 2022, Americans racked up more credit card debt than they have in the history of the United States. So I just wonder if these payments actually come back into people's households. Is credit card debt, it's going to go north of $1 trillion, but who knows, it could be north of $2 trillion.
Well, the cost is absolutely astronomical at major universities around the country. There are some universities, it's so expensive to have a 4-year Bachelor of Science degree. I mean, it's staggering.
Yes. Look, 100%, no matter what happens in here, we have to deal with the rising cost of college education. It's tripled since 1980. It's been double the rate of inflation since the year 2000. And we're dealing with the effect here, Jeff. Let's get rid of some student debt, but it doesn't really solve the cause, which is this rising cost of college education. If we don't figure that out in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to be back with the same problem again.
How do you think this is going to win out here? Is it going to be politics or the law? How does this play in your view?
Well, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I would say that the Biden administration would like to think that the Supreme Court will say that underneath the 2003 HEROES Act, that the education secretary does have the express authority to say that this was a national emergency, this student debt, and that's why they can print this $400 or $500 billion. On the other hand, again, you have to look at who controls the purse strings. It's typically Congress is the one that control the purse strings, and just having the executive branch be able to just magically stroke a check for $400 or $500 billion, I mean, this could come up as in a national emergency for a lot of debt situations. So I think the risk is, do you want the president of the United States, the executive branch, to have this kind of power? In the end, I think the law will say that the president cannot have this kind of power. That's just my 2 cents, but I'm not a constitutional lawyer.
Ted Jenking, the CEO of Oxygen Financial, we appreciate your time and your insight as always.
Thanks, Jeff.